The number one thing that I hear people say is, I'm not motivated. I don't feel motivated. The thing is, you don't need motivation. There's motivation and there's discipline. And when you look at like anything that you do in life, whatever it is, you do not need motivation. Anybody that ever says they need motivation, I tell them time and time again, you don't need motivation, you need discipline.
Welcome to another installment of The Perspective. My name's Devin, this is my co-host Mitch Harley, and today we are talking to Tabitha about small business burnout and how quickly it sneaks up on you and how detrimental it can be to the progress that you're making and the future that you're building. Really quickly, we're going to just do an introduction here with Tabitha, just kind of get to know who you are and what you're all about.
Sure. My name is Tabitha. I am an entrepreneur. I started my business in 2014. So I'm a health and wellness coach. I help driven professionals overcome adversity, gain mental clarity. I focus a lot on, physical transformations, but my jam is mental. I've, experienced a lot of crazy adversity in my life that kind of led me to the journey where I'm at today. And through sharing my story and some of the adversity that I've gone through in my life has allowed me to help other people transform mentally and physically. So it's been really cool. I've been full-time with my business now for the last 2 years, and it's something that I'm super, super passionate about.
I got a whole list of questions. So first of all, just from kind of following you on social media, I kind of did some homework on you before I reached out, and I really like the message, but I find a lot of it, like I mentioned earlier, was very personal. What you put out, some of the stories are something that probably a lot of people wouldn't necessarily share in the way that you do. Do you find, did that come from just a point where you had enough confidence in yourself to let that out? Or did you find that was part of kind of a building process? Like what made you say, hey, I'm going to share this, not from a pity standpoint, but I'm going to share this so that other people can grow from it?
I think a lot of it for me comes down to just social media. And I think that we're in this era that everybody views social media and the things that they see as it is. Like social media is a highlight reel. And so when, people are showcasing their things about their life, they're having babies, they're getting engaged. It's always, if you notice, it's always the happiest of things that people post. And I think even for myself being in the fitness industry, people always view you as this like perfect person, that you should always have your stuff together. And, for me, it's important for people to know where normal people like myself come from. I didn't come from a family of money. I didn't have an easy upbringing. I came from a very broken family. And I think that in today's society, so many people are trying to put on this perfect show, or they're trying to hide a lot of where they came from. But I think that all of the things that you go through in life shape you as who you are. And it's just like personal growth and personal experiences come from those. And so for me, in sharing my story with other people, I hope that other people can also be vulnerable and be okay with themselves and look at the things that they've experienced as growth to make them better. Because I think for a lot of people, we can sometimes fall victim of our past, and I think this is where sometimes people stay stuck in that. I don't like to say it, but it's true, is they stay set in that like victim mentality, is they look at their past and they don't ever get further ahead, is because they stay stuck where they're at, and you can either, I always say this to clients too, is you have one of two choices, is you can either fight or you can flight. And everything that I've gone through in my life has always caused me to just like fight. And, and sharing my story, that's my goal in life. That's my passion, is to help other people realize like, it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters where you go. And in every opportunity, you need to see opportunity in your problems.
I love the idea that we're a sum of our habits. This is something that is kind of a newer concept to me. In the last few years, I've just been really paying attention to how the habits that I've created through my life have formed, who I am and put me in the position that I am. And the idea of like radical self-awareness, just being able to examine, look at yourself, and accept what's there, and accept also that you have the power to change it. I'm curious to know, what's your strategy when it comes to helping others kind of take that level of accountability?
A lot of it is like, it's 80% mental. And for me, like, I think a lot of the I think a lot of the habits is we go through the motions in our day. We wake up, we go to our 9 to 5. We don't necessarily look at self-care in the terms that it should be. When people that I talk to all the time, they look at self-care as basic hygienic things. For example, getting their hair done, getting their nails done, going and getting massages. Like all of these things they're great. They make us feel good, but that's not what self-care is. Same thing when I have clients that say like they take their stress out on going to the gym. You should never put yourself through that. Like that's like punishing your body almost in a way. Like, it's good. And I get it. I always used to think like this too, is like, my stress relief is like, you go to the gym and you pick up weights and you put them down and, but that's not self-care. Like that's damaging. That stuff like hurts your body. Self-care is like an internal thing. And it's being able to look at all parts of yourself and just look at yourself in the mirror and, focus on your mindset, focus on growth, focus on coming from a place of abundance and gratitude. And this is something that I'm so passionate about. And I teach my clients is when you begin to come from a place of gratitude and not just like thinking or saying thank you, like actually connecting in your heart and feeling grateful for all of the things that you have in your life, even if you only have $10 in your bank account. You need to come from a place of gratitude in everything that you do. And daily habits, like this is something that I had to learn kind of the hard way is being an entrepreneur. It's like we put on our hat, we get up, we go, and we just go about our day and we plug in and we're just like set to grind. This is instilled in us from an early childhood. And for me, the biggest thing that I learned was, I call it like the power hour, if you will, is how you set the tone for your day is night and day. And when I say this, I mean, like it's human nature. We get up, we start scrolling on social media, right? We get on our Instagram, we get on our LinkedIn, we get on our Facebook. And the first thing that we're putting our mind into is all of the negativity that's out on social media. The news, like all of this stuff. And that if that's how you're starting the day every single day, how can you come from a place of like self-care and abundance? And how are you ever going to be able to turn it off and just work on stress management and work on all of those things that are important?
That's a hard habit to break.
100%.
Like I'm so guilty of it. I literally, that's my morning routine. Wake up, go grab a coffee, sit at the window and scroll through TikTok because for whatever reason, that's my new jam.
I love TikTok.
Yeah. But that's an interesting, like I have a whole rant on social media that I'm not even going to get into because, I hate it. Devin's teaching me there's some positive things to it, but from a business standpoint, like especially for someone that started, I don't know what your background was prior to starting your business. But I think regardless of how good your intentions are, how much self-care you have, starting a business takes time, it takes effort. There's a lot of pressure there. And there's that pressure that you have to work maybe even more than you would at any other job until it gets to a point where you can kind of, back off a little bit.
Yeah.
So, if we're going to talk about burnout, to me, the burnout potential is in that first year and a half of business, depending on how well it goes and that pressure that's mounting. How do you deal with that? Because that's not going to change. Somebody starting a business, that's not going to go away, or they're not going to magically be like, I didn't have any stress when I started my business. It doesn't happen that way. So how do you teach people or work with people to manage that external force that they can't control, the amount that comes with them?
So a little bit of background history on me is I actually worked oil and gas for 10 years. I did have my business as a side hustle, as I mentioned, like I established 2014. So I was super passionate about that. And for me growing up, like fitness was always a part of my life. And when I kind of moved around as a lot growing up, I didn't want to be like the new kid on the block and always joining sports teams and stuff. So I took to the gym at a young age, and that was kind of like my way of turning things off. And then as I got older, I realized like how it made me physically feel and the benefits from it, like mentally, physically, and all that stuff. So I worked oil and gas, and I did that as a side hustle. And it wasn't until, I decided to burn the boats and just go all in and be passionate about what I was doing. But and even doing so before I started this up full time, I was working 12-hour days. I was working shutdowns, working 6 days on, 1 day off. And, the money's really, really good. But I think this is where people need to separate self-care versus, again, just like what we're taught in school is like, you get a good job, you go to college, you get educated and stuff. Like there's got to be that fine line. And for me, the way that I turn it off is like, and I even tell my clients this, is stress is never going to go away in your life. Like, we're always going to have stress. The thing is you need to better manage your stress. And I think the thing is just like being aware of when that's coming and when that's happening, is because some of us, I think, carry a lot of stress internally that we don't even really pay attention to. Stress can show up in your body, how you're physically feeling. But when it comes to being fatigued and stuff, you have to know when to turn it off. And for me, being an entrepreneur, this is just like, I think it comes down to boundaries with yourself. Like, as much as I love my clients too, I've set that boundary and that relationship early on, that like after 7:30, like I'm done. Like, I've set that boundary with myself, because if I'm not mentally, physically good, like I'm no good to myself. I'm no good to my daughter. I'm not good for my clients. And it does like take practice, but I always tell my clients, focus on being 1% better every single day. Because if you try and go all in to something, it's just going to be like a vicious cycle trying to break that every single day.
Literally setting yourself up for failure.
100%.
I read about a study where they took two groups of people, and I'm pretty sure these were like children that were being like raised in a, way back when they were doing weird studies like this. And they took one group of kids and told them that stress was a bad thing and to avoid it and do whatever you could not to, involve yourself with stress. And then the second group, they told them that stress was actually good. It helps you grow. It's good for your mind and your body and all these other things. And what they found actually was when those kids grew up or kind of like reached a certain milestone, the kids that were told that stress is bad were doing poorly in life in general. The ones that were told stress was good were doing very well in their life. So when you mentioned that, a lot of this, it's 80% mental. It's like your perspective on things. There's some actual science behind that and how that functions. And so I think it's super important for people to start paying attention to their own paradigm, like the box that they have put themselves in, and that level of self-awareness, looking at the mirror, as you said, is not necessarily like that physical, actually go look at yourself in the mirror and see what you can improve. It's more like look at every aspect of yourself, not just that physical, but like that, the immaterial things that are going on, the conversations that you're having in your head, and how those are influencing your day-to-day decisions. And when you reframe that, like you said, into that perspective of gratitude, the idea is now things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And when things are happening for you, it opens up a lot more opportunity for you to take on tasks and become better. And I think about it in terms of like a weightlifter. There's a level of stress that you have to put your whole body under when you're trying to pick something up that's a little bit heavier than, the last thing that you picked up. And by doing that, by picking up something a little bit heavier, you build stronger muscles. And the same thing happens emotionally. When you take on these stresses and then see it through to the other side, you greatly benefit from it because you become mentally and emotionally stronger from it. What's your perspective on that? Do you see that commonly, like in the space that you're in?
100%. And if you're not growing, like, you're dying mentally, physically, everything. But I'm going to give you guys some food for thought here, because this is something that I tell all of my clients too. And people that even come into my program and everybody that I talk to on a daily basis, the number one thing that I hear people say is, I'm not motivated. I don't have motivation. I don't feel motivated. The thing is, you don't need motivation. Like, anybody that is ever relying on motivation, you will fail. I promise you this, because there's a fine difference between there's motivation and there's discipline. And when you look at like anything that you do in life, whether it's like eating healthy or going to your 9-to-5 job, doing like a weight training program, whatever it is, you do not need motivation. Anybody that ever says they need motivation, I tell them time and time again, you don't need motivation, you need discipline. Much like getting up and going to your 9-to-5 job, who the hell is motivated to go to work every day? Like, even as much as I love my job, there's days that like, I still sometimes have a hard time showing up if I'm going through like personal things, or, if I'm having like an off day, or, kids are unpredictable, and like, I'm a full-time entrepreneur. I'm a full-time mom too. So like, for me to juggle like work-life balance, it's been a compromise, and it's always going to be a compromise. And I've had to accept the fact that like, I can't just like grind 8 hours a day. Like, there has to be that balance between like giving her time and attention, giving myself time and attention, and then also giving my clients time and attention. It's a strong balance. And in everything that you do in life, you're never going to feel 100% motivated all the time. And if you're somebody that's motivated all the time, like, I want to know your secret success, because that's just like, I don't think that there's a human being on this earth, like even billionaires, like the world's greatest people, like they're never motivated. The thing is, motivation is just that. It's an emotion. It's going to come and it's going to go. Discipline is the thing that will always see you through in everything that you do, because you discipline yourself to get up and go to your 9-to-5 job because it pays the bills. It feeds your mouth, so that's how I look at everything. And that's what's helped me, I think, be so successful, is days that I don't feel motivated. I know the things that I need to do because I've disciplined myself. And it takes time. Like there's two sides of your brain. There's the conscious and there's the unconscious. And when we think about the unconscious, like even those of you guys that are watching, if you do an exercise, like when you go to write your name, like anybody can do this right now, just like write your name on a piece of paper. It comes. You don't even think about like writing your signature because you've done it for so many years that it's in your unconscious brain. The things that we try and do and the things that we try and like flip over and teach ourselves, those are in our conscious brain. Like we actually have to think about those things. Same thing with if you're trying to like follow a weight training program, if you're trying to like eat healthier, like it's not a part of your daily life. So that is like in your conscious brain, not your unconscious brain. So it takes time to break those habits, because there's a difference between where your conscious mind is and where your unconscious mind is.
Talking about stress. So like, I agree. I think there's a healthy amount of stress that helps us develop, helps us grow. I view it like a piece of machinery. If you underutilize a piece of machinery, how it was designed, that load for it to handle, it actually is just as harmful as overloading that machine. And that's how I view us in our life. But I learned the lesson as a teenager. I had very low self-confidence, and my posture, my physical posture showed that, right? I was hunched over, my ears were like, past my toes. But I had a lot of back problems because of it. And as I kind of developed and I increased my, being more confident in myself, and, physically too, help, working out and just taking better care of myself physically as well. I felt, my back problems went away, and my posture changed, and just how I held myself in front of other people changed. But what I saw was previously how I dealt with stress was I bottled it up. So what's the difference between managing stress and bottling it up? Because, sometimes people, they think managing stress is just hiding it and putting it away and putting it out of sight, out of mind. What are you seeing with people, especially that have a business that they have to focus on? It's like they don't have time to deal with those stressors.
I think it comes down to acknowledgement. Like acknowledgement is a huge thing. And again, you're never going to be able to get rid of stress in your life. It's just like your schedule, setting those boundaries with yourself. And how I deal with my stress management is, again, it goes back to like the power hour. How you start the day is like how you end your day, and that sets the tone for your day. So if you're waking up and you're like checking emails and this is like how you're starting your day, there's so much chaos and noise, and this just has a ripple effect. Is like, think about it when you wake up first thing in the morning and you stub your toe. That's like you emulate like a bad negative thought into the universe, and then you're stuck in traffic, and then again that just like sets your whole day. So this thing with stress is like, when it comes up, is just acknowledge it. And the thing that I teach my clients, the number one thing that's really, really helped me is I get crystal clear on my vision. I do a lot of daily affirmations, but when it comes to stress, is acknowledging it. And anytime I feel stress, that's usually like, you need to have that like mind-body connection in realizing when stress is coming up. Some people feel it physically in their body. And this is where I recommend like taking a break. Some people try and plow through it and they have deadlines and stuff coming up, but it also comes to boundaries with yourself and knowing when to say no. I did this in oil and gas for so many years, and it led me to burnout. Is I was always that person that was like, a people pleaser. And I was always like, I was the yes girl. Here, there's this project. Can you take on this? Can you do this? So-and-so is going on vacation. Do you need more hours? Blah, 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 blah. And I always said yes to everything. And in doing so, I was overstepping my own boundaries and letting other people come in and kind of like dump more workload on me. And I wasn't even acknowledging the fact of like where I already was. I was setting myself up for failure in that. But as stress comes on, I think we just go about our day and we drown in it. We don't take those like mental breaks with ourselves. You know, even for people that, I used to be a smoker too. So like my stress really was like, go and have a cigarette. Well, what happens when you quit smoking or if you don't smoke? Those are still breaks that you need to have with yourself. But the thing is again, it goes back to the power hour. And what I always like recommend to my clients is how you start your day is like, it's just like, I don't know, you set yourself up for success to either win the day or fail the day. And daily meditation has been something that has really helped me in, you know, starting my day and having affirmations and just kind of like you laying the smackdown of what you want your day to be. But I think it just comes down to understanding your body. And when you're feeling those things is, you know, that you're taking a 10, 15 minute break and, you know, you're actually acknowledging when it's happening and you're not trying to just push it away because it's not going to go away. It's only going to get worse.
When I was a kid, my dad told me this thing, and for whatever reason, it stuck with me. And I use this now quite often. So I'm normally kind of like a pretty neat person. I have a little bit of ADD, so I'm always just like, you know, the pillows have to be in this position and the coffee maker has to look like that. And because that's part of my nature and who I am, what my dad started noticing is when I'm sliding like into a stress overload place, I stop taking care of those little things. So, you know, maybe the laundry starts piling up a little more, or I just don't do the dishes right away. And so there's something in the sink when there not normally is, or just clutter starts piling up on a table where it normally isn't. And those little things, he said, that's an indicator to how clean and organized your mind is. So if your external world is in complete disarray, it's a sign of something. And usually it means your internal world is in some level of disarray. I wonder, are there other things like that you use to help you kind of like be able to tell, like, I think I'm coming up to, you know, a burnout or some level of like overwhelm, and maybe I should just kind of take a step back and focus on these little things? Like, what do you do to recognize that?
I tell myself the same thing I tell my clients is work is always going to be there tomorrow. I had to learn this the hard way.
Amen.
You know, I know it's easier said than done. But we live in this era of schedules and routine and structure. And this is where I'm kind of still in this place of like practicing what I preach to, is because like I'm a hustler. I like to grind. And even for me, it's hard to like turn it off, especially when you're very passionate about what you do. But for me, it wasn't until I think probably the last month, I used to work like 6 days a week and I would just take Sundays off. And then, you know, as time started going on, I had to keep reminding myself of that same message: is work is always going to be there. Like what is an extra 2 hours that I'm going to do tonight gonna accomplish? Like if I'm, you know, losing sleep, or what am I sacrificing in lieu of doing that? And I always look to my daughter, like I'm sacrificing like my relationships, I'm sacrificing friendships. Like, and I spend so much time shutting out these other things. And especially, I think COVID taught us a lot of things. And I know even for myself, I did a lot of reflection in COVID. And the thing that I teach my clients is you have to balance health, wealth, and relationships. There has to be that strong balance in everything. And so for me, what started setting me up for success was doing weekly goal setting. Like, anybody can have a vision board, anybody can have dreams, anybody can write their goals on a piece of paper, but is actually like sticking to it. You need to revisit these every single week. And for me, what's helped me be so successful is setting these goals. And so at the beginning of every single week, usually on a Sunday, I do my goal setting for the week. I set a health goal, a wealth goal, and a relationship goal, so that I'm always working towards a target. And this is something that helps keep me in alignment with what I'm doing. And this is something that also helps me better manage my stress. Because again, you're never going to take stress away. But for me, and having something that I'm always like revisiting to, is it keeps me accountable and it keeps me in check, so that when I am feeling stressed out, it's like, oh yes, these are like goals and this is boundaries that I've set with myself. So a health goal might even be as simple as like drinking 1 liter of water, 2 liters of water every single day. Like keep it small and keep it something that's going to be achievable. You're obviously not going to lose like 30 pounds in a week. And then like a wealth goal. What is something, and this could even be like you're putting $100 away that week or something. And then a relationship goal. We all think that we need to stay I love you to our partner. We all know we need to hug our kids more. Like we think about all of these things, but are we actually intentional every single day with the things that we do? 9 times. So in setting these goals is, again, like at the end of every single week, I revisit these goals. Did I hit my goal? Yes or no? And this is where people need to stop setting new goals in place of, because if you're not achieving your current goals, there should be no reason why you're setting new goals to replace those other ones. It becomes that like vicious cycle back and forth. But when I'm seeing that those things are coming up in stress, this is where I need to realize I need to unplug. And again, it just goes back to like work is always going to be there. So for me, I might just like have an afternoon where I'm just like done. Because if I'm stressed and I can't think and I don't have mental clarity, I'm not showing up for myself. I'm not able to show up powerfully for my clients. So that's usually my indicator of just like pull the plug. Work is going to be there tomorrow. It's never going to go away. You can either, again, it goes back to you can fight or you can flight.
I got 2 topics that I think you should address. So first one, I want to talk about food, because it's not even about, this diet or I'm vegan or I'm not, or whatever. In the business world or work environment, lunch hour is gone. There is no more, you're done for an hour. It's
living on window food.
Yeah. I need to go eat. So what's convenient?
Yeah.
And we all know what's convenient. So we run and we eat, and then we go back and we're expected to be productive after filling our body with crap. Sorry, but that's just, it's so common. That's why the fast food industry is so effective. And I'm not even going to talk about affordability, but do you see direct results of people just, you said that power hour, that could also be during the day where you take that, mental break and stop. But if you don't properly replenish, just filling your stomach is not replenishing.
Yeah.
Right. Do you see a burnout just unnecessarily because people are just not taking care of themselves physically with what they intake?
100%. This, if you're not fueling your body with the proper nutrients and stuff that it needs, like that also leads to burnout in the sense of how you're feeling, how you're physically feeling. And people that are overweight, like they already struggle with fatigue. They already struggle with, self-confidence, self-esteem and stuff like that. So if you're going about your day and you're skipping meals or you're not eating at all, this not only increases your chances of gaining more weight because you put your body in starvation mode. You're not able to think like, people that have hit like a creative roadblock, like when you're not eating, you're getting headaches. For women, it's causing hormonal imbalances and stuff. And, even going about your day, like I get sometimes for people, it's, they have busy demanding jobs and stuff, but it's just, you have to be conscious of the choices that you're making. Because again, if you're not in a place where you're healthy for yourself, you're not going to be of any good to your family. You're not going to be of any good to your kids. And that's just going to have that ripple effect in how you're performing at your job, because you're not able to think, clearly. You're going to have more health issues that are going to come up. And unfortunately, for some people, it has to get to that point before we start appreciating our health, as like messed up as that is. Sometimes people need that like smack in the face of reality, but ultimately is like people that say that they don't have time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's just, I did a little exercise, and I always ask people to do this. When people tell me I don't have time, I said, okay, think of it like this. The next time that you want to say you don't have time is just say it's not a priority and see how that feels. Because one of 2 things are going to happen. A, you're either going to get defensive, or B, you're going to be like, you're going to start talking yourself out of it. Or you might even be in agreement to it and be like, yeah, I know I need to exercise. You're either going to go one of 2 ways. So when it comes down to like, I don't have time, is it you don't have time or it's not a priority?
Well, this points at setting up systems and structures for yourself so that you can sustain those things. Like a single father, I have my kid most of the time, and it's balancing, taking care of him, spending time with all the people in my life, doing the work that I need to do. Supper was a hard thing for me. My mom made supper for me my whole life. Then when I moved out and I had girlfriends, like they did the supper thing. So being on your own for, a period of time, I went through this weird learning curve. I was eating incredibly unhealthy, and I recognized that I was like damaging my body. And one day I just made a change. And the simple thing that I did was, anytime that I would get groceries, I'd get a couple of packs of chicken. And instead of just like throwing that in the freezer and then it kind of like looming for when dinner came, like, oh, I got to defrost it and then repack it and whatever, I just started, I'll just cut the chicken up into strips or cubes or whatever, season it lightly with the things that I like, and then like package that. So now when supper time is ready, the only thing that I got to do is get that out, get it in the fryer, take my vegetables, put that, and then make like some rice. And it's so very simple, but it's like a healthy system that I set up to like take care of myself. Do you have any suggestions for busy people that are in that space to like make those kinds of structures in their life? Like,
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. Is again, it comes down to time, like how much time you have, being real with your schedule. But like what I teach my clients is the thing that I recommend is pick a day where you can carve out an hour, 2 hours, and it doesn't even have to be complicated. Like, you don't need to spend 2 hours in the kitchen. We live in this world now where everything is like resourceful. If you go on Google, like you can probably find, 10 different meal prep companies. So, utilizing the resources that you have in exchange, that's going to not only save you money, that's going to save you time. So that's one way of doing it. Another thing is, if you're somebody like yourself, or like even myself as a parent, like, I cook everything in bulk. So I will literally spend that 1 hour on a Sunday cooking everything in bulk, like buying like, all of your meats, all of your vegetables, your carbs, like whatever it is that you want to make, and cook everything for an entire week. If you're like me and you're kind of weird and you like your vegetables fresh, I usually do those like 1 or 2 days in advance, so they're not all soggy and gross. It's a preference, but it's just like prioritizing it so that, when you set yourself up for the work week, again, Sundays is usually like my goal setting days. And this is how I help clients set themselves up for success, is pick that one day where this is like your self-care day, if you will. So it doesn't have to be like a full Sunday where that's just like you and meal prep and meditating and like whatever. Pick a couple hours a day where you can have that be a day where you're going to revisit your goals, and, you're going to do something for yourself to make time for your friends, make time for your family, where you're kind of shutting off and debunking from stress. But then you're also doing your meal prep, cooking everything in bulk, putting it in Ziploc containers or, Tupperware, putting it in the freezer, so that, again, like when you're going through your week, that's one less thing that you have to think about that's going to stress you out. Because I think food stresses a lot of us out, which is really weird.
That's a big yes.
Yeah. No, and I see that, right? Like, look at the lineups and drive-throughs, because people didn't plan.
Yeah.
Right. It's out of convenience, and they're not at the lineup because they thought ahead and they're like, I'm going to get a burger for, at 3:00 when I get hungry. It's like, no, I'm hungry now. And I need this. And then all of a sudden you get road rage. Right. I think there's this compounding effect when people are hungry. I think there's more hangry on the road than road rage. But it's just, I agree, it's time, and it's not a priority until your body says, no, this is a priority, right? I'm forcing you. I'm going to shut you down if you don't put something in me. So I think food, and especially if you want to run at 100%, are you more effective at 100% or even 90% of your potential 3 days a week, or 10% 7 days a week? And that's where I think, that shift in priorities should change, because productivity always goes down after lunch.
Yeah.
Right? Especially in the construction world, where you're just, physically swinging hammers. If you start from 7 or 6 in the morning or whatever, you get the most done until noon. And then after that, it's like kind of this heavy drop off. And I think whether that's eating healthy or not, it's just, that's the cycle of the day. But that's because you're at your peak performance physically and mentally. And then after that, you kind of fade off. So what's more effective, the 4 hours in the morning or the 4 hours in the afternoon? And you start doing that over a period of a week. And especially someone that has to take accountability for a business that they're starting as an entrepreneur. How efficient do you want to run? Do you want to run at peak performance for a shorter period of time and get more done? Or do you just want to be lethargic for the full week and, complain that you have to put in 160 hours in a week to make your business perform? The other thing I wanted to pick your brain about is phone time, because there's a burnout from lack of food and nutrition, but I also had to learn, being in the sales world, this can't run your life. This is how you run your business, but it's not how it can run your life. And this can burn you out, because I got to a point where I had such a stressful boss that when my phone buzzed, even if it was on a Saturday and I knew that it wasn't him, my heart, I felt like I was having a heart attack. Like it's been years since, and I still get anxious when my phone buzzes, and I don't even have anything to be stressed about. This is just residual stress. And it's like, there's no way that can be healthy, when you're going through it. And I think you don't even realize it. But do you see a correlation between phones and their advancement in our lives and their evolution into stressors and burnout and just people going crazy?
Yeah. It's because we don't take enough time to turn it off. But I also think that how technology has come, when I was a kid, if I wanted to come in and come to your house and play video games or something, there was no phone. It's you just show up in my house, and if you're not there and we're at the grocery store, great, I miss you. There was none of this. So I think for today, we selfishly take all of the things that we have available to us right now for granted. But I think when it comes to screen time, and kids are learning this the hard way. And I, even as a parent, I'm not one of those parents that is just screen time and TV time. I think it's important to still teach your kids, they need to be productive and they need to do things and they need to earn things. But as an adult, my phone is on me 24/7. And I use my phone for emails, checking in with clients, everything that I do in a day, I is on my phone. But what really helped me in being successful in my business and just having that personal time with myself and my family is, again, it comes down to boundaries. Is you have to be able to set those times where, you're turning work off. It doesn't matter if the president of the United States is calling you, it doesn't matter, because you need to go back to that being disciplined. And even for me, there's days that, if I'm plucking away at work or if I'm doing something even my mom will call me, or, unless it's of urgency, I just don't answer those calls. And what's really helped me and what I teach my clients is you need to better time management. And one way of doing this is setting timed intervals on your phone for everything that you do. It's one thing to have an agenda. I always recommend looking at your agenda the night before and having everything, literally everything scheduled in there, from the time that you're waking up, from the time that you're doing meditation, from the time you're doing cardio, from the time that you're doing meetings, is set yourself up for success the night before and pre-plan everything in your agenda. And when you're working on specific projects at work, one of the things that is going to help you not lead to burnout is setting those timed intervals on your phone. That's you laying the smack down of you're blocking off this much time. And if that project doesn't get done, then great, we're going to revisit it tomorrow, because work will be there tomorrow. It's not going to go away. It's going to be there tomorrow. And that's okay. But it's just, that's one thing that's really, really helped me. And just making sure that, even when I'm spending time with my daughter, time with friends, is you need to be more intentional. And I even saw this when I was in the food industry, when I was serving years ago, as people would come in for their lunch and they would literally have bets where they'd put all of their phones in the middle of the table, and whoever answered their phone first, lost. I think they had a pool of money going or something. And it was so funny to see. These were business executives. But you see this happen all the time. And that's just where you need to set those boundaries with yourself. And for me, it just comes down to better managing your time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. It's just, you need to put it into timed intervals and be intentional with everything that you do.
Before we wrap this up, we've talked about, the warning signs and preventative measures. That's a lot of it. Let's take the perspective of somebody who has hit that burnt out stage. They're wiped, they're done, they're cashed out. What do you recommend for people in that position to help them kind of get back into that flow state to recover and find that balance and health again?
Listen to your body. Most important thing is, if you're tired, sleep. And I think for a lot of us is we just go on autopilot and we're I can't, I got projects. I just I need to do this. But if you need to sleep, and you need to be more in check with your body and what your body needs. Cause at the end of the day, like, health is number one. And if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. But when it comes to rolling up your sleeves and kind of going back in, this is also where boundaries, like, I'm all about boundaries, and this is where you need to be real. And if you're feeling like your workload is overwhelming, you need to have those conversations, because I think we live in a world where we're afraid to voice our opinions. You know, we are afraid of like losing our job, and there's a scarcity all the time of abundance and a lack of this and a lack of that. And I think it's caused a lot of people to just like live in fear. But ultimately, like, if you're not healthy, like, look at all of the nurses, for example. I'm going to like go right deep into COVID right now, because like all of the people that are in the healthcare industry right now, like, they're burning out. And I think for a lot of them, it's just like they're in this scarcity mindset that they need the abundance, and they know that they're in high demand. But again, this is where you kind of need to push back and realize, like, if you're not living your best life for yourself, for your kids, like, you're going to be no good to anybody. So you need to really pay attention and really recognize those early signs, and, you know, have those conversations and figure out like what's a healthy work-life balance. And if you're somebody that's just like starting out a business, is like, be real with your schedule. And, you know, that's the joy of being an entrepreneur, is like, you set your own schedule. But I think you also have to be real with where you're balancing your time for yourself, where you're balancing your time for your relationships, and where you're balancing it for friends and family and stuff. It has to be like that healthy balance across the board. It can't be like you give 80 to get 20 in return.
I often refer to the analogy of like when you're on an airplane and there's a loss in cabin pressure, you got to put your mask on before you can put somebody else's mask on. You got to save yourself so that you can save others. And the same thing, like, fill your own cup up so that you have abundance, and then you can fill other cups up as well.
100%.
I love that. That's the mission. For anybody that's listening, watching, like, comment, subscribe, share it with a friend who needs to hear this before they burn out, hopefully. And if there's something that you want to hear us talk about, let us know. You can email us at emailtheperspective@gmail.com. For now, that's a wrap, and we will see you guys in the next episode.